What's up, everybody? I'm back with another episode of the Keep Going podcast. Today's guest is my guy, Mr. Roshan. He's a real estate investor based out of Oklahoma City. He also is a hard money lender and does much, much more. He realized early that the 9-to-5 wasn't for him. So in just a few short years, he built his rental portfolio and was able to sell his dentistry business and become financially free by 30 years old. He's an amazing guy, a wonderful story. We get to talk about business, life, love, travel, and much, much more. I appreciate this guy so much and really happy that we got to spend some time together. As always, keep going. I know what you mean, because sometimes it's like it's almost not even worth it on some of those.
Yeah,
where it is
and
like
they're super abrasive, and you only make $3,000 to $5,000. It's like, what did I do?
Like, what is the point?
Yeah.
I just had something recently like that where the person just flipped, and I'm just like, it's not even a great deal.
Yeah,
like I always have a relationship with the sellers for the most part, to where I want to see it through, even when it is a base hit like that. But it is interesting. I like how you can get more selective as you get better. Like and you're in a position where you're established enough and understand real estate enough that you can be selective.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that definitely takes time and experience.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Fun times, man.
Well, Mr. Roshan, thank you, brother.
Hey, man. Thanks for having me.
Yes, sir. I appreciate you. And I like your office too.
I appreciate it,
It's
man.
really nice.
2 days old.
I got lucky. Last time at your house, but you were whooping me in chess. But now we're at the office, so I get a safety since it's not around. But, man, I really wanted to come on here and just chat with you. You've grown to be a good friend of mine over the years, but I love that you're just, one, a good person, but you also have really strong values on your boundaries and things. And I just respect that about you. So I just appreciate you, man.
Dude, I appreciate you so much for saying that. And I appreciate you as a human and friend as well. I enjoy our chess nights and just talking, whether it's for fun or travel or whether it's business or wholesaling, whatever. I just enjoy our conversations.
The first time I saw you, bro, was driving down the highway in your Camaro. Was it teal?
Yeah, it was like that bluish color.
It was so funny because I think I was with Tez and we were talking about you, and they're like, yeah, Roshan like the ocean. And then you just drove by. Yeah. They're like, that's him.
That's him.
Like, oh my gosh.
Dude, I love Oklahoma City for it to be, it's grown so much in the last couple of years, but with it being kind of a small community, you can be like that where you're talking about someone and sure enough, they just roll down the street and you're like, yep, that's the person.
It's crazy too, because you run into those folks, but once you get into real estate, you're like, oh no, I know way more people now.
Yeah.
So you see people all the way, even if you don't know their name, it's like, hey, I see you.
Yep.
So it's not only cool to run into them, but it makes business easier.
Absolutely.
Because when I first started wholesaling, I sold a lot of deals to you, and having that personal relationship made it way easier. Mm-hmm. Even with, other buyers, learning to work with you and like Alex Moses and people like that, and know that it could be friendly, helped me establish those on the other people where you could knock those boundaries down with those other buyers and have a cool relationship.
Absolutely.
So I think it takes some finesse, but it works well.
Absolutely.
But man, I really just wanted to catch up with you. I know last time we hung out was before you went on a couple trips and things like that. So I just wanted to pick your brain on life. But besides, you're traveling and things like that we'll get into, what's going on with the business?
Yeah. So, we just moved into this office a couple days ago. We're excited, about to make our first hire on acquisition specialist side, and just excited to get to this business to the point where it kind of self-sustains. Mm-hmm. Right now it generates income, but we're still putting money back into the business in terms of marketing and things like that. And we're excited to grow it to the point where it self-sustains, and then grow it to the point where not only is it self-sustaining and profitable, but the people within it take the leadership role to take the reins of the company. Mm-hmm. And then I get to step away.
Yeah.
And then whether my next position will be learn how to do developing and set up a new business, or whether it's to finally sit back and relax, I'll just be happy to have those choices.
Because this will be more on the wholesale side.
Yep.
And then acquisitions, I'm guessing, because you still buy real estate.
Yep.
So you get a mix of that.
So the point of this whole company, why I basically retired from dentistry and then decided to open up this company. Mm-hmm. The whole point of it, even though I achieved financial freedom, was one, I wanted to get more lead flow because, as you know, deals are hard to come by. And when you're passing them through wholesalers, many times they're not deals.
Yep.
MLS deals are just so infrequent that they're hard to get. And so you get increased deal flow and also, help give us a little day-to-day, my wife and I, of day-to-day things to do and tasks to accomplish. Because I think as humans, we just need to be productive. Otherwise, we're unhappy.
It's a pretty huge blessing to have to look for something to do.
Yeah.
Especially at a young age, because you're 31?
32.
32?
Yeah.
So, I mean, scaling that back to already retiring from a job that most people, or a career that most people stay in for long term.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just an accomplishment in itself. But I think it takes mindset, I'm sure.
Takes a fair amount of risk, takes mindset, and, takes I would say, what is it called? Unbreakable belief in yourself to keep moving forward. And I think the cool thing is that it can be accomplished by anyone. You just have to really believe in yourself and take the necessary steps. Sometimes those steps are very scary, and sometimes they're not always all positive. But you just got to keep taking them.
It's interesting because I started wholesaling in 2019. So you were still active at the dentistry, right?
Yeah.
But you owned your own?
Yeah, I owned my own office, and I was active until December of last year, 2023.
Wow.
That's when I really got out, and then had a few months of just relaxing, playing a lot of video games. And then it's always been a hope of mine to open up a wholesale company so that I could have basically leads that are really good quality leads on in terms of rental properties and flips for myself, just being generated by my own marketing as opposed to, having to depend on others.
Yeah. So basically you're paying your marketing, but you would be paying that anyway in wholesale fees to buy them from people.
Exactly. If a typical wholesale fee is anywhere from 10 to 15,000, that could be a month of marketing right there.
That's true. And as far as, you getting out and you said got some months to kind of just relax, something I wanted to talk about is I saw you post on Facebook because, our brother Tez was talking about work-life balance. And that's something I talk about a lot, whether it's in the podcast or just in the world, because it comes up so often.
Yeah.
But I think you said something like, I can't even remember how it was worded, but it was like work was at the end of this equation.
Yeah.
And I just kind of wanted to see what that means to you to live so intentionally, because now you're living for yourself and doing these things by choice. Like, how do you feel different?
And I'd like to, put a little asterisk there, which is work is at the end, but that was only after financial freedom, right? Because in the beginning, financial freedom I was sacrificing a lot to achieve that.
Yeah.
But once achieving...
What type of sacrifices?
Time, I was working probably around 80 hours a week for a couple of years, sometimes 100 hours a week for a couple of years. And then over time, I was able to scale that back. I was working full-time as a dentist and then full-time as a real estate investor.
Because you'd be meeting us on breaks and things from the dentistry, correct?
Yeah, well, the fortunate thing was our dental shifts were 6 hours. So I would be meeting you either before or after, but a lot of times I would be going to networking events straight from my office and I was still in scrubs.
I remember the scrubs, yeah.
Yeah, so, you come out to a networking event still in scrubs, and not just because you're lazy, but rather because you literally just left your office, and it's like, okay, yeah, networking is fun, but there is a work component to it. And there is a goal there to either establish new relationships or cement old relationships so you can get new deal flow or be top of the mind of someone who might have a deal that they want to sell off. And so, I was doing a lot of that in the beginning. And then once I was able to get financial freedom, which was basically replace my dental income and sell out of the dental office through real estate. At that point,
when you say through real estate, that's through rentals, things like that?
Yeah. So the way I make money in real estate, the number one right now is hard money lending. And after that is rentals and flips and commercial properties. And also I'm involved in capital raising for syndications.
Yep.
And so we get, equity in syndications, and I put in my own money into syndications as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so all of those factors are ways I make money off of real estate.
And that's all off of foundations you built over the last 6 years.
Yeah, 6, 7, 7 years exactly. Yeah. And it was always intentional. That's the cool thing. But once, you got to that financial freedom, it's like, well, what was it all about? It was about making sure I had the time for my family. So it was family comes first, family, relationships, friends, things like that. Mm-hmm. That was number one. If something is happening to my brother or my parents or something, I'm leaving everything and I'm going to be with them. Same thing with my wife's family. If something's happening to my wife's family, I'm leaving everything to go be with them. Then came hobbies. And so I love playing tennis. Yep. I love traveling. Mm-hmm. I love all of those things. So first priority is family and relationships, then our hobbies, and then last is work. And so what I do now is I set up my lifestyle where if I'm going to meet up with family, that's number one priority. If I'm going to go play tennis, that's number two. And then I make my work schedule around that.
Mm-hmm. What a blessing.
Yeah, it is.
Because real estate is really, I'm sure there's other fields that make that obtainable, but it seems like in real estate, even though there are a lot of times you're working 80 hours, because you can't get away from that at some points, it comes with so much flexibility where you can do that.
Yeah.
Where you can go play tennis because it's important to you, or you can, even more important, take those family times. So it makes me think, like, why do you think those hobbies fulfill you so much? Because when we were talking about going to play tennis, which we still are, I was excited. When we played chess, I was excited. I like to play pool. What do you think it is in us that makes us love that so much? Man,
I feel like those are the things you enjoy with no expectations, right? Mm-hmm. You have no ulterior motive there. When you're there to play tennis, it's not to make money. It's just to have a good time slapping the ball around the court, right?
Right.
You're there to play chess. You're having a good time just to enjoy that mental challenge of playing chess, right? I think that not having those ulterior motives is the difference between something you like and something you like and you make money off of. And so, yeah, hobbies are just things you like with no ulterior motives there.
They mean a lot to me because it's something that I find myself asking people very quickly when I'm discovering more about them. Like, what kind of hobbies do you like?
Yeah.
I wasn't as interested in the past, but as I gained more and more hobbies, I'm way more genuinely interested in someone else's hobbies. You'll be shocked when people say they don't have ones, but I'm always interested in what someone does to escape, whether it's drawing or I know someone that does woodwork. He built me a desk at my house.
Yeah.
Things like that. They really interest me because we get stuck. And I know that you're always going to have to make some type of money. Even when you're financially free, you're needing income generating.
Yes.
So there's always money that's needed, but it is nice to just live a little bit.
Yeah.
And be able to, take it slow.
Yeah, I would say, not necessarily take it slow, but I think live with intention, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, mm-hmm. Because I still am working right now, building up the wholesaling business, and that's still 30, 40 hours a week. But I'm able to set up, I have tennis lessons on Wednesdays.
How long have you been doing lessons?
Just like a few months now.
That's cool.
Yeah, but I have tennis lessons on Wednesdays at 1 p.m. or 1:30 p.m. On a normal job, you wouldn't be able to do that, but I've carved that time out, and I'm like, this is more important. So 1:30 to 2:30 is blocked off. I'm going to go play tennis, then come back, shower, then I'm going to get back to work.
That's nice.
Yeah, so it's not like my schedule's still pretty full, but it's not it's not slow, but it's lived with intention.
Yeah, with the tennis, bro. Is that something you grew up playing? I can't remember what.
Yeah, so okay. I played in high school. I'm not really good or anything like that. So I played in high school. I took some lessons in high school, and then after high school, I stopped playing for 8 years. And my wife's dad, so my father-in-law, loves playing tennis. And as I got closer to my wife, when she was my girlfriend, her dad and I would start playing tennis, and that really reignited that passion. And I was like, man, I really want to play. And he would whoop my butt. It was crazy. But
just placement.
He was so good. Yeah, he's still really good. But I always told him, I was like, hey, once I get out of the dental office, I'll have way more time, and I'll be able to have that freedom to choose and get better and play more, more consistently. And that was important to me. And sure enough, that's what happened.
Oh, with the lessons, how have you been noticing some really good improvements?
Yeah. I would say, tennis, because it's a single person game. I mean, you could play doubles, but still ultimately when the ball comes to you, it's not a team sport. It's a single person thing. It's very much mental. And it's like, all right, you can learn the right ways to do things, but then what do you have to do mentally to make sure you consistently do the right things? And that's really where a good coach comes into play.
Because I'm sure it's form, like how you hold the racket.
Yeah. Oh, there's so much into it. I'll constantly tell them, I'm like, there's too many things to think about.
Yeah. As the ball's coming, you're like, going through this Rolodex of your steps. Like when you're practicing, just because I'm so curious about what a tennis workout is, something random I do is periodically I'll do a soccer workout. Yeah. And I've never really played soccer. Like I did it as a kid. I played some indoor fresh out of high school because where I worked, there was a older guy in his 50s that ran a team. Okay. And he was like, you can play basketball. Yeah. So I played a little bit, but randomly I'll do a workout and I'm so fascinated with like the drill aspect. Yeah. What are they having you do in tennis? I know it's a lot, but like the basics, what are some basics? So you might, shot placement and strategy is a huge thing. So you might be working on, there's different kinds of shots. Like even on normal forehand topspin shots, there's a more heavy topspin versus a flatter shot. And so where you're hitting and how loopy that ball is as it goes to the other court, that's shot placement. Okay. They can do drills on that. You can do drills on how your legs are moving. When you're up close to the net, the drills are completely different, how you're going to be hitting. And so basically, it's just, you're doing drills of techniques that you're going to be potentially using in a match, but you're going to be like just focusing on one kind of shot. Like it might be that hard top spin over and over. Exactly. Or it might be hard top spin to a backhand and to a volley, and you want to keep doing that dynamic because you're going to be doing something similar in a match. And so it's kind of like, all right, let's see how we can perfect what you're doing, but make it applicable to actual matches. Yeah, not just comb drills. Exactly. How many matches do you play pretty often? Like, do you get to do that weekly? I recently joined a tennis league, a USTA league. Let's go. Yeah, I was never able to do it before because my dental job had me working at night shifts. Oh, okay. And so if the league played on Mondays and Wednesdays, I couldn't guarantee that I was going to be off at nighttime because our shift ended at 7:30. And if it was a busy day, it could be 8:30 and then I had to go home. That's 9 o'clock change and get ready. I would be, exactly. I would be at the courts by the time everything was over. And so I could never commit because I didn't want to give someone my commitment and not be able to follow through. True. And so finally, after I sold out the dental office, then I was able to commit. And so I joined a league. That's cool. And so, we usually play one match a week, and our particular team has more than enough players. So I don't play every week. But I'm playing maybe like one match every 2 weeks and trying to put in a practice match every week also. When there's the match in the league, is that sets to a certain amount, or how does a match work? Yeah, so it depends. The way the USTA, at least here in Oklahoma City, works is you're going to be basically playing 2 sets. And then if it's a tie, there's what's called a super. And it's like just a first one to 10 points. That's cool. Yeah. It's always fun to like practice things and get better at them, but then kind of put them to the test. Yep. Something I got into about a year. Well, I grew up playing it, but a year ago I started taking pool more serious, and I'd be doing drills or playing by myself and things like that. And it's fun to go get whooped by people. Yeah. You're like, okay, this is cool, but I know what I'm doing. And it tells you what you need to now do drills on and what you need to improve on, because you'll be thinking, oh man, that third turn, I messed up hitting that green ball in that corner pocket. Let me practice that one 20 times.
usually when I go in for my coach, I'm telling him, hey, these are the 3 things I want to work on this appointment or this lesson, because I sucked at him on the match. And so it's fun. I feel like it's fun to lose because you learn so much, but it's fun to win also.
So that's something I
just love playing.
I just love playing.
Yeah.
I love to win, and I'm not a loser. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not like, let's lose. But I've never been happy, and it sounds weird, but in sports and things, I've never been happy being like the best one. So if I would have came to your house and it was flipped and I was just beating you back to back to back on chess, I could be like, okay, I'd do what you did. Okay, let's handicap some and make it more even.
Yeah.
Because the learning is a lot more fun to me. Like when we play tennis, after you whoop up on me a couple times, then you can say, Zach, try this, work on this. Because I just think you learn so much in those battles.
Yeah.
Especially with friends.
Yeah, exactly. It's no fun, just whooping on someone. It's just not, unless it's a video game, it's not really enjoyable. Even on video games, sometimes if you just whoop on someone, it's not really that.
You're like, okay.
Yeah, it's just like, you don't get any satisfaction because there was no effort that was required.
Man, on the traveling side, because I'm more fascinated in your hobbies and travel more than anything.
Yeah.
I'm lucky that you have such, a wealth of knowledge that I call you for things all the time. But on the personal side with the travel, did you grow up traveling a lot, or is that new?
So I did grow up traveling quite a bit. My mom worked for AirTran, which then got bought by Southwest Airlines.
Okay.
And so we got to travel a lot for free on standby tickets. Mm-hmm. And I had such a blessed childhood of being able to go and experience a lot of different things growing up. But then what happened was I realized I didn't really like the way they travel. They like to wake up at 6 a.m. and fit in 20 things in one day. I'm more of the, let's wake up at 9, have a more relaxed breakfast, enjoy 1 or 2 things in that day, enjoy a nice dinner, okay, sleep in. And so I almost resented them for a little while because when we traveled, it felt more like a chore. But then when I started to have my own income, once I was a dentist and I was able to buy my own trips and do it with just me and not have to be on their schedule, it was a completely different experience.
Yeah.
And then, ever since that moment, I love travel.
Where were some of the first places you went by yourself?
I went to pretty much domestic. I went to California and actually one international trip. I went to Thailand.
Oh, wow. I haven't been to Thailand yet.
Oh, it's so wonderful.
That's what they say.
Yeah, it's really, really wonderful. Full of tourists, but actually still kept its culture pretty well. Very inexpensive. Food is amazing. Lifestyle's great. I mean, it's the best. It's pretty awesome.
And then once you started, like, what do you think you saw that made you enjoy it like that leisurely pace? Because that's kind of how I travel. Like I am efficient, like to do certain things. I'll sacrifice to go do something if you got to get up early.
Yep.
But for the most part, I'd like to wake up when my body does, have breakfast, and then just take it easy all day.
Yeah.
And just look around. So what do you think spoke to you with that? Just because you had a high octane job and things, or?
I think, I experienced the other side of it with my parents as a kid, and I never really enjoyed it. So I knew what I didn't like, and then I tried things that I didn't know if I would like or not, but I ended up liking them, which was the, more casual pace. And so, Michelle and I always talk about we plan one big thing a day, whether that's going to be scuba diving or whether that's going to be, a tour or something of that nature. We plan one big thing a day. And we let the other stuff kind of fill themselves in. Whether we talk to people, locals, and they're like, hey, go try out this place, or you really need to go see this place. And we like it that way. Is it possible that we didn't see everything? Sure. But we also think that we can always be in next time.
That's something I had to think of quick too, because that's why I'm happy that I didn't wait on purpose, but my window of traveling, started when I got into real estate. But I was kind of happy that I was mature enough when it came around, because I'm the same way. You're like, I didn't see everything, but I got to see some really special things.
Yeah.
And it makes you, I think, appreciate it a lot more, because you're like, no, there's no way to see everything. Like, and are you even enjoying it if you're doing the back-to-back itinerary style.
It feels more like a checklist.
Yeah,
and no,
I saw it, boom.
Yeah, no hate on anyone who does that, because there are a lot of people that do that and they like it that way.
Mm-hmm.
No hate on anyone who does it. It's just
Right.
not my style.
Yeah.
It sounds like not your style either.
No, I mean, we are to the point where a lot of times on our bigger trips, we'll just book leaving and coming home and leave the rest just kind of whatever happens.
Yeah.
Because we found when we first were starting to travel more, when we plan out days, it started becoming a chore. You get burnt out, or you wouldn't have just any want to do anything. You're like, well, we're just hopping on another train, or we're just driving 8 more hours, because we did road trips domestically as well.
Yeah.
But I think the freedom part of it was what spoke to us the most.
Yeah.
When you started traveling with your wife, I know, well, not started traveling, but when you all did your honeymoon hacker trip,
Yeah.
was all that lined out since you had to plan ahead, or?
Yeah. So, I was still working, and I told my partners a year in advance that, hey guys, I'm going to take a ridiculous honeymoon. It's going to be about 2 months, and it ended up being 49 days.
Wow.
And, I was fortunate enough where a few years before we got married, my job was to make sure we had enough points to do this honeymoon. And then, as you know, Michelle's job was booking and figuring out the logistics of it.
I mean, you owned a dentistry, so it's racking up.
Yeah, you'd be surprised. I think I got more points from real estate than I did from dentistry.
I believe it, with repairs. I mean, not repairs, but like materials. And things like that.
Yeah. And, the best way to get points is opening up cards. You'd be surprised how many repeat cards you can open up, and how many, I got like 10 chase cards, and most people think you can only get a few. I got like 10. I literally had like 10.
Mm-hmm.
And so opening up those cards, strategic spend, when you have a rehab coming up, you can get tons of points. And then
I remember you told me on the Home Depot side.
Yeah, the Home Depot side, exactly. And then it's not just having a lot of points, because what I find talking to real estate investors is that they know how to get a lot of points, but then they don't know what to do with the points. But then learning what to do with the points is something that I excelled at. I feel like I knew pretty well too.
Because it can get confusing and a little overwhelming.
Oh, it's 100%, 100%. You're reading all these guides, and you're like, I don't understand half these words. Mm-hmm. And then I realized that's how the outside world is viewing us when we talk real estate.
True. Yeah.
We're talking cash on cash or ARV, and they're just like, what are these guys talking about? Mm-hmm. That's how a lot of people will read these credit card guides and don't understand, and it gets overwhelming and things like that. But fortunately, we were both good at acquiring points and also knowing how best to use them. Mm-hmm. And so, we had this crazy honeymoon, 49 days.
49 days.
Saw 13 cities, 10 countries, and spent 3 to 5 days in each little area. And really,
3 to 5 days, to someone just listening, like, they may be like, oh, cool. But when you're doing that much travel, 49 days, but you're getting segments of 3 to 5, you're really soaking in where you are.
Yeah.
Because you'd be surprised how much looks normal after day 2 or 3.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, I remember this, turn left here.
Yep.
So, I mean, I bet just being gone that long was insane, regardless of all the experiences, but just being gone for 49 days, no home, backpack life.
It cemented my belief that I was not meant to be doing chairside dentistry. I still love to do volunteer and charity dentistry, but not actually doing for-profit chairside dentistry.
Yeah.
And also, it also gave me the belief and solidified the belief that, hey, real estate income is coming in whether or not I'm working. And so that was really cool. And so it gave me the confidence to go out and be like, all right, you know what? Pretty soon here, I'm going to sell out of this office.
Man, I know you're not going to be able to tell me your favorite part of the honeymoon, because 49 days is insane.
That's so much.
But give me like a random highlight you enjoy.
There's this one place in Cappadocia, Turkey, and it's world famous for having one of the best, probably the best hot air balloon trip you can take.
Wow. And
so it was fantastic. New Mexico does something. I think Albuquerque does something similar.
Yep.
But it's not on the scale of Cappadocia. When you go up in those hot air balloons, the landscape is gorgeous.
Because it's mountainous, right?
Mountainous, and they have really cool rock formations mixed in with grasslands and things like that. So you're looking at this beauty, and it's awesome. Mountains in the mix. And then there's like 150 hot air balloons in the air with you.
That's not scary.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they're spaced out.
Or you just get over it.
Yeah, you get over it because the hot air balloons move real slow and they're spaced out enough where you're like, all right, it's not that big of a deal.
What about the floor? I always felt like since it's a basket, it would almost feel like you could fall through.
It doesn't.
Okay.
It's not. It's not like a wicker basket.
Yeah.
It's got a proper floor in there, and the basket walls are pretty high. It's like just your shoulders out. And,
okay. So you get a little comfortable.
You get pretty comfortable, and I think it's just that was a fantastic experience there.
What was Turkey like? Because I've heard the people there can be really loving.
I've heard that too.
I've heard both sides though.
Turkey as a whole, I can't speak for. I can only really speak for Istanbul and Cappadocia.
Which Istanbul's the capital, right?
Yes.
So that's going to be tough.
Istanbul for me was actually the least favorite part of the journey because I felt like the moment I walked out of the hotel, everyone in the hotel was really friendly and perfect. But the moment I walked out of the hotel, I felt like a mark. Everyone from the taxi drivers to the food stand guys to, you'd go to a bazaar or market.
What's a bazaar?
A bazaar is just like the Arabic word for a marketplace.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And so you go to something like that and they know you're not from Turkey, you're not a native, and they will immediately like figure out and scheme how to collect the most amount of money from you. Mm-hmm. And I don't mind spending money and supporting local, artists or any kind of local business, but when you can feel the like, hey, they're really trying to like scheme you out of money. Yeah, it just doesn't feel good, and so
you just have to walk off. Huh?
Yeah, and so Istanbul was my least favorite because of that whole feeling. It felt a little unsafe. And then we went straight from Istanbul to Cappadocia, and it was the exact opposite reaction.
And Cappadocia is a smaller place?
It's a smaller city in Turkey, yep. And I believe it's to the north of Istanbul, if I'm not mistaken. Right. Yeah. And you had to take a plane. It's like a short plane, hour, 2 hours plane ride. But people there are so incredibly friendly. Like the food was fantastic. Mm-hmm. The lifestyle was great. It was awesome. And then so there were high points and low points of Turkey as a whole, but I really liked Cappadocia and I really didn't like Istanbul.
That feeling of like being a mark, like you said, those moments are tough. Yeah. Because it is awkward. I mean, I remember in Italy and they were like pressing me to get blood donations. Yeah. And I'm like, what is going on here? They're like, no, you're fine. Come sit in here. I'm like, no, what are you talking about? Yeah. So you see like glimpses, I think, of what everyone here in America are scared of. But then you go and you're gone for 49 days. You get to see how much like other life there is. You're like, there's nothing holding me back now. Because honestly, these little minor things we're talking about are minuscule in the positive side. Yeah,
I would say that was like the low point, but everywhere else was fantastic. Mm. Everyone generally across the world is friendly. And you have to respect the local customs, but everyone is generally friendly. In Europe and Asia and, where we went during our trips. And it was just really cool to see all the different cultures, how they live. It makes you really actually very appreciative of life here in America. I mean, we don't have everything perfect, but we have a lot of great things. One of the things you find in Europe, especially now, is a lot of people are just dying for work. They would love to make more money. But the things that people like about Europe, like the lifestyle, the siestas, are also what sometimes inhibit those same people from making more money. And so it's kind of a catch-22 where you see people in Europe being like, hey, I moved to Spain from Greece because there was no work in Greece. And I'm moving to Spain and doing XYZ job because I want to make more money and send it back home. But at the same time, you go to Spain or you go to Greece and you're like, man, this lifestyle looks amazing. Like it's very low pressure. It's not living a life all about money. It's more about family and relationships and having a good, satisfied life. And so it's pros and cons of that style, but you still come away from travel appreciative of what we do have at home. Yeah.
I think it's always a nice balance of the appreciativeness of home and then being happy for all that change too that you got to experience, because you definitely have to find a balance. It almost makes you want to be all in real estate here and then just keep traveling. Like it's almost like a cheat code because you're like, well, I'd rather just make my money in the way I see fit and then just travel as much as you can.
I mean, America is the greatest place to make money in the world. Greatest place for financial opportunity in the world.
Yeah. It's
not the greatest place for healthcare, life satisfaction, life expectancy, some individual rights. It's not the greatest thing in schooling, education, a lot of different things. It's not the greatest, but in terms of financial opportunity and just opportunity in general, it's not even a close race.
Well, man, tell me the 10 countries then, just so I can know where you went.
Okay, so I started in Portugal, went to Spain, then after Spain, I went to Turkey.
So you went a little gap, you flew, I'm guessing, from Spain?
Mm-hmm. Yep, these were all flying.
Oh, okay, yeah, no train travel.
Yeah, not really, no trains. Turkey, then Greece, then I went to Dubai in the UAE.
Nice.
Maldives. I went to Bali in Indonesia, Singapore, which is both a city and a country, and South Korea.
Wow.
Yeah.
What do you think of the Asian countries? I always hear the best things about
Oh, man, I love the Asian countries. I mean, the culture is so different, but the food, lifestyle, level of service, I mean, it's just on another level.
The thing, because you're on Instagram, it's Roshan the foodie, isn't it?
Yeah.
Asian cultures, I love them just because you always get a big range of flavors. So you get the sour, the salty, all those things.
And bold flavors.
Yeah, that's true. You'll have like the mint or those other things that really stand out.
Mm-hmm.
What prompted you to do those reviews? Because I used to keep up with them.
The Russian ratings.
Yeah, I liked them.
Yeah. I started by making like a little like day journal of my trip, and then I only do things if I feel like I have the desire to do them.
Yes.
So I started doing the day journal after about day 11 or so. I was like, this is it's too much work. I'm putting too much time on social media. Let me not do that. So then after a few days, people were asking me, well, what happened to the next place? And they were seeing my stories. And so I was like, all right, let me put up a little social media post on a city. Mm-hmm. And it seemed to resonate with people because a lot of activity on those posts. And
well, I liked them because you'd be like 8 out of 10 or 7 out of 10. And I like these things. And it'll just help you kind of weed through like what you're going to see on normal Instagram, YouTube about a place. You're like, oh, well, he said these 5 highlights. Like, let me look deeper into those.
Yeah.
I'm the worst at posting when I travel because I really choose not to. I'm like, I just want to hide for however long I'm gone every time I go. But I do keep a journal with me. Mm-hmm. And I knew for some reason on our first big trip a couple years ago, I was like, which literally you walked me through. I called you and you walked me, or you and Michelle walked me through on getting it. I started keeping track of what we did for the day. And then 4 or 5 trips later, I'm looking at it and I'm like, man, I'm really glad I did this. Because it wasn't necessarily journal where I'm giving these paragraphs of my thoughts.
Yeah.
It was just like breakfast was this, lunch was this, dinner was this, saw this.
Yeah.
Because your mind will go back there.
Yeah, and it's crazy how in the moment you're like, wow, this is spectacular and unforgettable. But then 3 weeks later, you're at home and you're working and you're like, what was that place called again? So actually, those Roshan ratings, the secondary and probably maybe even primary function was for me to be able to go back and remember the thoughts I had on them.
Yeah.
And it was also great because as I posted, there were people that would be like, oh, make sure you do this X, Y, and Z, or make sure you do, this other thing.
Yeah.
And so it also allowed people to tell me, hey, don't miss this unforgettable part of this city or this state or country or whatever. Mm. And it even gave me a lot of times I found things I wouldn't have necessarily found on my own.
Yeah, it's true. I remember you said it earlier with like talking to locals, whether it's locals or someone from here, they'll shoot you, hey, don't miss this. And you go to it and you're like, dang, I would have never found this.
Yeah.
Especially if you're in a big city like a London or a Dubai or something like that, where there's so much, you look up, there's probably 10,000 restaurants or something. So it's like, no, I'm not going to find any.
Yeah. Yep. I agree with you.
What's that look like for you to the day to day now? Like, if a couple weeks go by and you've been here grinding, are you ready to dip, or is it not as bad? Or
You know what? I don't feel that way at all.
Good.
I haven't felt that way this year at all.
Nice.
I felt like dentistry, for my personality, could be soul sucking at times because I very much, I've learned to separate the feelings of what happens in the office to my personal take home. But there's only so much someone can hear. You know, every day I see 5-6 new patients, and 80% of them are starting off the conversation by saying, I hate the dentist, right? I'm like, all right, you know, I get this is not an enjoyable aspect of anyone's life if you're coming in pain, but you don't have to start the conversation like that, right? Mm-hmm. And so those kinds of things of, I hate the dentist, I don't want to be here, it's just all that negativity.
Yeah.
You can try to separate it as much as you want, but it's tough. And then you add in, that has only gotten worse since COVID. People as a whole have become weirder and just more outrageous since COVID. So you add in patients are harder to deal with. You add in the financial aspect with insurance is also being harder to deal with, declining, and you're doing work and you're expecting to get paid and you don't get paid. And there's nothing you can really do about it because you're at the basically ball and chain of insurance companies. And then you also have to deal with the fact that there are some surgeries that you do that have a high level of risk. You know, lower implants in the back part of your jaw. You have to be very worried about nerves and arteries that are there that, you know, if you do hit them and you mess up really badly, you might have to take this person, drive them personally to the emergency room because that's something that has to be taken care of ASAP, or it could be life-threatening, right? So you're thinking about that. And on top of that, you know, you're dealing with also, it's a relatively big staff of maybe not super well educated people. And even if they are well educated, generally their emotional intelligence has not left high school. So you get a lot of squabbling and drama between your staff, between different positions in your staff. And all of that just for a paycheck. I mean, I was happy to use it as a stepping stone, but I'm happy to never have to go back to it too.
So what happened? Like, you got out of school and you went to school for dentistry.
Yeah. So
you start that out. From my experience, most dentists would be starting kind of at a practice, but you started with opening your own.
Yeah. So
that's already a huge step because you're managing all that.
Yeah.
And did you just like when did you make that shift where you're like, I'm not wanting to do this for the long term? Because I'm guessing since you probably were taking it home sometimes or noticing you weren't present when you were in other situations. So I'm sure there was like a tipping point.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say, you know, my goal even before I left dental school was I wanted to achieve financial freedom in 10 years or less, right? Okay. I wanted to achieve financial freedom, and I read every book on financial freedom I could and eventually settled on real estate. Moving from Florida to Oklahoma just so happened to happen. It was a very lucky accident because of a connection I made, and we decided to open up a practice together in Oklahoma City. So the goal of financial freedom was always there. Mm-hmm. Probably around 2.5 to 3 years in, I started realizing that, you know what, this is just not going to work long term. This is not what I envision my life to work long term. And don't get me wrong, dentistry can be extremely lucrative and you can get a lot of money from it and you can learn to scale it as a business, but still, like, just that business and the people in the business and the players like insurance and the nature of what kind of employees are going to be in that business,
it's just not worth it.
I just realized it's not that it's not worth it. It just wasn't for me. It's not my purpose here on this planet to be doing some person's filling when they told me 30 minutes ago that they hated me. You know, it's just not my purpose. And so at that point, I started actively being like, all right, I'm going to make real estate happen, and not just happen, but financial freedom, replace my dental income, and then I'm going to sell out.
It's just amazing because I bet there's so many people that are locked into that. That want what you have. And not just on the financial freedom side, because of course people want that, but just to like live with some intentionality. And a lot of people can't. They're just stuck in that race because you'll look up and you're like, oh, 8 years went by. Oh, 12 years went by, and then you're like, no, but I got to keep the business going. So just to even have that foresight and to be risky enough to do things like that, I think it makes you special. So it's pretty cool to hear that story.
I appreciate that.
Of course, bro. And the thing I like is the more free you are, I feel like the more you become yourself.
Yep.
And I'm still working on my freedom. I'm not at the point I want to be at, but through real estate and of course having a wife that was able to help me work on a lot of things as well, I just feel like you get to become more and more your truer self. And it makes life in general more enjoyable.
Yep.
I don't know about you, but I think back to my first times getting into real estate, and mine was more on the sales side, so you're investing, but I was getting stuck in the emotion side.
Yeah.
And even a couple years ago, I still would, where that person's bad decisions are making me feel bad just because I'm a caring person.
Yeah.
Like they're like, yeah, well, I squabbled my money away that you all gave me for the house and I'm homeless or something crazy. And I'm like feeling bad. And I'm like, wait, that's these people's decisions. Because that's just a random example, but it makes me think of it because you almost have to know, like with the dentistry, like you were feeling that.
Yeah.
They weren't necessarily saying they hate Roshan.
Yeah.
But they say, and you're like, damn, well, I am sitting here like personally helping you.
Yeah.
So
you're like, I'm literally trying to be as kind and as helpful to you as I can be. And I just get responded with, negativity. And
yeah.
so,
not even from a fake place either. You're being genuine.
Yeah. Sometimes it was fake, but I'm not gonna lie.
Okay.
So sometimes you have to kind of put a mask on, but I would say for the majority of times it was genuine, and I really truly want to just help people, and But then the negativity is sometimes, you always remember the negative things more than you remember the positive things. The
True.
negative emotions you feel weigh on you way heavier than a positive emotion that you feel. I don't know why we're wired that way, but it seems to be a universal truth. And so
that's interesting because you'd think we'd be naturally more grateful because it's crazy that you have to think to be grateful and think to be like present. Like, shouldn't it be normal to be where you are and enjoy it? But no, you have to
actively work towards it. But immediately someone can make you angry or upset. And it's like, that's a natural reaction to fall back to, but you have to work towards being grateful. And
what do you do when those negatives come through? Is that something you work on? Like if someone's trying to yank you down or there's an abrasive person, do you distance yourself, or like how do you do that work?
Yeah, I mean, fortunately or maybe unfortunately, it happens so often that people are not happy to be in the dental office that you learn to disconnect and be happy with the happy people, be understanding with the unhappy people, and just one patient. Once you're done with one patient, you move to another patient. You reset your whatever happened. You reset and you match the energy of that person that's in front of you, or you, if you're not matching, you're at least being positive.
Yeah.
Right. And so, yeah, just enough time, enough reps to allow me to learn how to reset in between people.
What about your day-to-day life?
Right now?
Yeah, because I had to like stop getting upset at stupid stuff. Like someone honks at you crazy or whips in front of you or something weird happens at the store. It's like, have a great day.
Yeah. I feel, I guess I feel fortunate that I was part of dentistry because that's taught me to just, it doesn't matter. Things flow off of me now.
Mm-hmm. Man, well, I kind of want to dive into a little more detailed part because I feel like I can just catch up with you all day.
Yeah.
But on the financial freedom side, for people listening that are doing real estate, you talked about the flipping, you talked about the rentals, you talked about the lending. For someone that is in a similar position you are in, where they do have the money, they have the income, how do you make that shift to be intentional with it? Because you can make the money, but to know how to put it into real estate, like how did you scale?
How did I scale? Well, I think that's a great question. I think that scaling was always something that had to happen because, as a dentist, you're going to make great money, and to replace great money requires a lot of houses.
Yeah. If you're going off cash flow or flips.
If you're going off cash flow, flips maybe it's a little bit easier because you're doing active work. But for me, I was thinking more like, hey, I want to replace it more passively. And so I always knew that if I'm making $200 a house, well, I'm gonna probably have to have 100 houses to get to 20 grand a month to replace that dental income. And so I really knew that a lot was gonna always have to happen. And so what I did was I created a formula, which, I don't mind sharing. It's just rent minus the PITI minus 28% of rent had to equal 12% a return, cash on cash. And so whenever a house met that metric, I bought it. I put it under contract. And so if that meant that I had 3 houses under contract, I would figure a way out to deal with that problem of not having enough capital. But I would just basically find my metric and just buy as soon as things hit my metric. And if they didn't, I would be very upfront and have no problem saying, hey, I need to be at this number. And if it doesn't work, I understand. Usually what I say is, hey, I need to be at this number. I know that's lower than you're asking, and I understand if it doesn't work, right? And then they'll say, no, I'm sorry. That's, a couple of times I've offered on properties, and you're like, that's below our acquisition price. And I'm like, I get it. It's no problem.
Yeah.
We just, part ways and move on to the next deal, right? But always the idea was that I can't get financial freedom with 1 or 2 houses. I needed a bunch to create the passive lifestyle. So that was always my goal. And anytime a house hit my metrics, I would just buy it.
And as far as like a house hitting your metrics, those have to come from somewhere. So did you realize early on, like, oh, I should try to network to wholesalers, or like what was the game plan to acquire deals for someone that, is trying to look for that and doesn't have the thoughts like you did?
Yeah. So I started in 2018, which is a totally different market than today in 2024.
There was a good amount of deals in 2018.
In 2018, you found deals on the MLS. My last MLS deal has been over a year ago. So it's a different, if for someone today, I would say you absolutely need to network. You need to know who the wholesalers are in your local market. You need to know who local investors are. And just see if there's a deal you're going to pass on, could you mind sending it to me? And like finding whatever kind of lead flow that you can, because deals are harder and harder to find in today's market. And so, yeah, you'd need to network to do it. Back when I started, I was doing MLS deals, and then 2019 deals started getting harder. In 2020, when COVID hit, deals became like super dried up. And so I was buying a lot on MLS in 2018. Some in 2019, very few in 2020, and went almost to wholesale only models.
On the MLS side, did you have like an agent you liked working with? Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's huge too. People sometimes don't think how smart it is to just have partners in each avenue.
Yeah.
For that, a wholesaler, a realtor, a lender.
And especially on the buy side, it makes no sense to save the 3% or 2% or whatever it is going to be on the purchase price, because I'm going to send 50 offers that my realtor has to write up. And so it makes more sense for her to be the realtor and for me to be the investor, and me to just be like, send this offer.
Yep.
Right. It's just easier all the way around, because I got asked so many times, hey, if you're buying so many houses, why don't you just get your license? Like, I'm not trying to make a job out of, writing up contracts. I just want to be able to tell someone to do that.
Yep. So after you start buying, you said whether it's 1 under contract or 3, and I'm closing all those. So from the course of 2018 to 2023 is when you're just building that portfolio?
Yeah, I would say 2018 to 2022 was my major source of building. And while I've acquired some in 2023 and 2024, it's been very minuscule in comparison to what I've already built up. Just because if things don't hit my metrics, I don't pull the trigger. And nothing has hit the metrics. Very, very little has hit the metrics in the last couple of years.
Wow.
So instead I've shifted, right? Instead of, well, you can buy a house and maybe you burr it and you're making $3 a month or $50 a month. Or you could buy that same house and flip it and make $20,000. Well, I'd rather make the $20,000 than the $50 a month, right? Mm-hmm. Because the $50 a month doesn't hit my 12% return that I was trying to get. And so I learned all right, let's shift shift with the market. Don't be so inflexible in my term of investing that, hey, I only can work with rentals. I can only work at this formula. Okay, it doesn't work as a rental, but let me learn and see if it works as a flip. Okay, if it doesn't work as a flip, let me see if it works as a wholesale, or whatever the deal may be. And so that's kind of what I've done. I've just shifted with the market, and that's how I've grown my real estate portfolio.
When did you switch into the lending side? Because I know I've reached out to you multiple times on properties, which I will say I love people like yourself, Russell Hunt, Scott, Henderson, other lenders, where they have a very set way to get the information. Like you'll say, hey, I'm going to send you that thing on Messenger, and it's a questionnaire. That makes it even easier for me because I can just give it all to you. And then when you give me back the terms, I'm just matching it up.
Yeah.
Okay, so this makes sense. This makes sense. But besides just being appreciative of that, because I really do like your process. What's the shift to lending? Like the deals got more scarce. So you're like, well, let me lend on people that are more risky than me?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I think the deals did get more scarce. They're there. But the problem is that if you're someone like me who was not doing direct marketing to sellers and was buying from wholesalers, then they were very scarce.
Yep.
You know, you or other wholesalers or fix and flippers that were getting deals direct from seller, could find bigger spreads where I felt comfortable. Hey, let me lend on this deal because this person's going to make money. I'm going to make money. That seller's going to get taken care of. And so what I found is most of the deals that I lend on are direct to seller deals, not being sold through wholesale deals.
Yeah, so you're not lending to the buyer that got it from the wholesaler. You're lending to the person that wrapped it up.
Yeah, and I mean, sometimes I do lend to an end buyer that did get it through a wholesaler if the deal has enough space there. But generally, most of the deals that I've been lending to are direct from seller.
Yeah.
And that is how you're going to make money. And actually, that's part of the reason why I pivoted once again with the market and opened up my own wholesaling company. Right? Because if I can't get enough deal flow from other people, from other wholesalers, let me make my own deal flow.
Yeah. I mean, and the good thing is just those exit strategies, because real estate is so creative. There's things that I have no idea about that people are doing right now to make money. I know it.
Absolutely.
But as far as general, like, well, you can't lend on it. Well, I can wholesale this. Oh, I can keep this. Oh, I can flip this. I think that takes a lot of knowledge, but it also just takes the risk, you know, like being able to pull the trigger, but still have a standard.
Yeah.
I think that's really cool because it really comes down to that. If it doesn't meet this, you have to stand on it, because sometimes, and I'm guilty of this, there's been a couple times where it looked really tight and I was like, man, but if it goes well, here we are. And it's still not great, but you're like, it's at least doable. And then you do 2 flips and you're like, breaking even.
Yeah, you're like, why did I do all that work to break even?
It's like, dang, okay. Yeah. I mean, it worked and it was good to keep the trades busy and keep the machine going, but like it wasn't beneficial.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to be able to know, like, to stick to your guns on that.
Absolutely. Agree with you there. I'd rather have no deal than a bad deal.
For sure. Man, on the investment or wholesaling company that you're starting, have you got any deals so far?
Yeah, I've done 3 deals so far.
Heck yeah.
1 wholesale, 2 flips, and have about 3 in the pipeline as well.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
On the flip side, do you have a standard like team you like to use for the contracting? Do you have a general contractor? How does that work?
I like 2 different contractors. I don't like one contractor working on multiple houses. I don't like that because I find that you're giving them too much money, too much flexibility, and too much freedom.
Yeah, they can balance between
the jobs, and then they say, oh, I did this here, and then I did this there. I like to trust one contractor with one job.
Okay.
And does that make me slower? Yes. But also, I don't have the deal flow to do 10 jobs at one time, right? So it's not something that really bothers me too much. I'd rather have one contractor on one job, another contractor on another job, and that's how I run it.
And it helps your management side.
Oh, it helps my management
because you can just call this one guy and run through the whole property instead of, well, are we talking about 1, 2, 3? Or are we talking about 1201? And you're like going down this list. That's smart. And you get contractors that then sub out everything. You don't have to go look for each trade.
Yeah, I could save more money by doing the subs, but again, it's how much management do you want to take? And if this wholesale company grows to the point where we can have someone who's strictly project managing, maybe they act as the contractor and get their own subs. But as of right now, we prefer just having a contractor.
For sure. What about the rental portfolio side? was there a certain point that you started to get a property manager, or do you always manage them yourself? What's that look like?
Yeah, so I think I had 18 houses before I got a property manager.
I bet 18 was tough by yourself.
Yeah, it was. And remember, I was both buying houses, managing the houses I bought, and working as a dentist full time.
Managing the dentistry.
Which is its own thing, and doing the dentistry, which, you know, so it was a lot of work, and that's where the sacrifice came in. But yeah, so at around 18, it became to the point where I was like, I could save 10 grand by continuing to do the management myself, or I pay 10 grand more, but I unload all of these duties and delegate to someone else.
Yeah.
And at that point, it was like, I could not take more on my plate without either becoming a different person or, you know, just always being stressed. And so it was more important for me to just stay true to myself and just give it away.
No, that means more to me than all the other stuff, just knowing like when to let go of the certain things because it's not serving you. Like, no, I'm still going to invest in real estate and keep it growing. I'm not going to let it consume me. I'm not going to let the dentistry consume me, because honestly, until I began in the real estate space, everything consumed me job wise, because you're like, well, hourly or whatever it may be. So to be able to take a step back and kind of stand on those values, I just think it's important, because a lot of people just go through the motions every day.
Yep.
Even if they make a ton of money.
Yep.
I know people that make several $100,000 a year, and it's like, what do you do for fun?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, no, I just, and they sit there quiet for a second. It's like, hey, bro, like, I got 32 things I like to do. I can start rolling them out.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it comes down to it. Everyone knows it's not all at the end about the money, right? It's about freedom, about being able to do what you love. And if you lose sight of yourself in the pursuit of wealth or pursuit of money, you're going to end up with very rich with nothing to do or show for it. Why?
Man, that makes me want to ask, what does rich mean to you? Like, what's the definition of it for you?
Rich. Okay. So, I feel like rich and wealthy are different. Rich is just, let's call it, I think you are rich if you just have a ton of money. I think you're wealthy if you have 10 years of life expenses, like lifestyle expenses, in cash. So that's what I think wealthy is. If you can live for 10 years without a single extra dollar of income, then yeah, you're wealthy.
Wow.
And then financial freedom is different than both of those. And that's, hey, I'm not just replaced my income through a passive or semi-passive means, but I've also allowed myself to replace my income and have additional money to continue investing. Because you always have to keep putting some money back into the business or some money back into investing, because we don't want to be defeated by inflation. We don't want to be in a place where we're financially free and then revert back to not being financially free. So I always say, whatever your lifestyle expenses are, double it. And that's your financial freedom number. You have your lifestyle expenses, and the other number is going to be for continuous investment back into real estate stocks or whatever the case may be, so that you can, you're going to have life inflation as well as lifestyle inflation. So inflation of the dollar as well as your lifestyle over time is going to get more expensive.
Yeah. So honestly, like if someone's making $100,000 a year and they want to be completely passive, they got to double.
They got to have 200, right? So they have 100 to live off their life, how they are living it currently, and then another 100 to continue investing.
Gotcha.
That's financially free to me, right? Which is different than wealthy, which is different than rich.
Well, no, I like the wealthy with the 10 years of living your life without an additional cent is pretty crazy. Because I would imagine you would learn so much about yourself if you had 10 years of not worrying about where your next cent's coming from.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Like, even if you work on it now, just having that space is so different.
Yeah.
But I wanted to dive deeper into it doesn't necessarily have to be the word rich or wealthy or anything like that, or success. It doesn't have to be one word. But what's that balance that seems like you're doing a good job, as far as you've got your passive income, like you and your wife are happy, you're doing this, like, what does that happiness look like to you?
That's a great question. I mean, do you go to bed at night proud of your day that you lived? I think that's where happiness and satisfaction comes from. I mean, are you going to bed and feeling like you're ashamed of the way you acted that day because you could have worked harder or you could have done better? Or are you going to bed with no uneasiness and you're like, nope, I lived life the way it was meant to be lived today?
Yeah.
You know, do you go to bed thinking I worked so hard that I'm immediately going to pass out? That's not a great way either, right? So,
okay, yeah.
So I feel like your satisfaction and your happiness level when you're about to go to sleep when you think back about that day, I think that's where I would be like, that if you're happy there, then you're probably doing it right.
Man, that's so cool for you to say that, because there are days I'm not happy, but like any other person.
Yeah.
But I literally have those moments with myself. You think you're so tired, you know, once you relax for the day and it's time for bed, you're going to get tucked away or whatever. No matter what I'm going through, that last like 30 seconds before I go to sleep, it's always thinking like, you did good today, or everything's okay. It's like all this monologue with yourself to keep going, because it can get so defeating.
Yeah.
If you let it.
Yeah.
Because there's always more you can do.
Yeah.
Like you said, you got 3 deals this way, 3 in the pipeline, whatever. You could have 30. Like, yeah, there's all these comparisons, but I think it's cool to take it day by day, because you may get stuck in the long term, but then miss all those days too.
Exactly.
Because that's something I struggled with on the balance side. And it sounds like you had moments where it was getting close when you were letting work bleed over.
Mm-hmm.
What's something now that you do have a different type of living? What are some things you look forward to? I know hobbies wise, traveling and work, but what's something else that you look forward to that may be a little thing someone may not think of to take advantage of?
You know, I get a lot of time with my wife, and I really love that. I get a lot of time when I'm with my parents in Florida, or when I'm with her parents in Fort Lauderdale, and
both in Florida.
Yeah, both in Florida.
Nice.
We get to be able to spend a lot of time with them, and those are the things that I just really appreciate. Just because that wasn't always the case with working and having to be worried. For example, I went to Tampa to be with my parents recently for July 4th with my parents and my brother. And we were still flying the whole standby way, and it was crazy. We ended up leaving 3 days later than what we originally intended to. But it was totally fine because of this lifestyle that we've created. And so, that's something that we're just so grateful for.
That's the little things.
It's the little things, right? You're not stressed when something doesn't go perfect, because you don't have, the only person you're holding your standards to is you.
That's so huge, because you're right. We sometimes get, even if someone's not in the position you're in, you'll think you're going against some clock or something, like, oh, I missed that. Oh, it's over. But it's like, no, God was looking out for you. You needed 3 more days.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm in a different chapter in my life now where it just seemed like it came so fast. But I'm in an age now where my grandparents are a lot older and they're deteriorating and things like that. And you're seeing it. But when I was young and would see people deteriorating, getting closer to the end, it's not that you don't realize it. It just doesn't have as big of an impact.
That's right.
And then now in my 30s, I'm like, yeah, I know I was only able to go to my grandpa's twice this week for an hour each time, but I got to get as many hours as I can. And it's just, it makes you appreciate life even more and want to grind harder for that time.
Yeah.
Like you talk about, you wouldn't be able to do that on a Wednesday at 1. Like if I was in a regular job, I wouldn't have been able to go Tuesday in the middle of the day and just sit at my grandpa's and watch him watch baseball. I don't like baseball, but I'm just sitting there watching, asking him questions, or I wouldn't be able to come to your office at 3:00 and do a podcast with you, like if you were constricted. So it's nice that you can put in the time to get more time.
Yeah.
Because now in this chapter of my life, I've not only been grateful for myself and my own, I guess, successes, but man, I'm like, this is a tough time in a positive way. I don't mean it in a negative, but just aging and seeing other people age.
Yeah.
It's like, no, I'm growing up, I guess, type of thing. I don't know. it's something I've been, and you're such a friend of mine that I'm kind of venting about it, but it's just something I've been dealing with where it's like, when you see movies and someone's like, man, I should have spent more time with him. It's like, oh no, I'm in that time.
Yeah.
And I need to be aware of this time, or like my nephews and nieces, or my sisters, or my mom, or like you with your wife, or you with your family. It's interesting to be conscious of it, because I think a lot of people maybe just let the days roll by.
Yeah.
But
I heard not recently, but I heard something on a podcast or an interview, and it's like, well, if you're only going to see your parents like once or twice a year,
mm-hmm.
and they're 60 and average age is like 80, if you're seeing them once a year, that means you're only seeing them 20 more times, And so you got to be thinking about, well, how many more times am I actually going to be able to spend time with this person? And so I think that's cool that you recognize that and you do spend time with your grandparents in the middle of the week. That's really cool. And it's wonderful that real estate has given us that kind of opportunity.
Yeah, and I think it's cool with real estate that everyone's, I don't know, not just the word success is so broad, but everyone's experience they're going through is theirs. Like, everyone can make a different amount, everyone can have a different amount of investments or things like that, but they're all kind of looking for that same freedom. And I just feel blessed that I found it. And I wasn't in a position like you where I was like, no, I'm going to do a real person job like a dentist or a doctor. Like, I was like, no way. So the fact that you had that, but also took the chance to go to that and find real estate, it goes to show how it can bring people together. Because without real estate, I would have never met you.
Yeah.
And it's just cool how life works with that.
Yeah. I love it.
Man, I always like to open it up to you and just let you say anything you want to about maybe something I missed that's important to you, or just any closing thoughts for you.
Man, let me think. I'm on a mission to show primarily dentists, because, dentists and doctors, they have a similar lifestyle and similar trials and tribulations to get to this lifestyle that I had. But really anyone I feel strongly can achieve financial freedom in 10 years or less. That's my thing, that's my mantra. If I had a motto or a logo, that's what it would be, is you could achieve financial freedom in 10 years or less. And of course the asterisk there is that you have to sacrifice, whether that's sacrificing comfort, moving into positions that make you uncomfortable to grow, potentially location. Like, I had to move from Florida, where all my friends and family are, to Oklahoma, where I literally didn't know a single person except for the one person that I was partnering up with, right? So I knew one person in the entire state of Oklahoma when I moved here, right? And so you might have to give up friends, family, location, or, some kind of comfort. You might have to give up or sacrifice something, but everyone can achieve financial freedom in 10 years or less. And if you do it, then the world of options and opportunities really opens up, because then you can spend time with your family. Then you can decide you want to take a 49-day honeymoon. Then you can decide, you want to do a podcast at 3:00 with your buddy, So it really, I think it's really possible. Even today, when real estate is harder, I think it's totally possible if you're willing to put in the time, the effort, and most importantly, the sacrifice.
Yeah, I think the sacrifice is huge, because sometimes it's hard to do that when you are living in the moment. Like, okay, well, yeah, I could do that, but should I? Yeah. And it gets really tough. So it's nice to hear from someone, but also from someone that's doing it and has done those things. But I bet, as far as like the passion for it, is got to come from knowing that anyone can do it, since you were that anyone. Because I see you speaking at conferences or seminars and things like that. And honestly, I'm sure it's well received from those people, since, like you said, you're similar to them, going through dentistry, getting that debt, and then having to work out of it.
Yep.
Because I bet that can seem impossible.
Yeah. It definitely is a huge thing over your shoulders. And I feel like nowadays I'm more concerned about, all right, let's start thinking about becoming debt free and really just unshackling. You have to leverage to grow, but just unshackling any burdens off of your life, any remaining burdens, because now we've done financial freedom. What is like the utmost freedom where nothing can ever happen to take you away from that state. And that point is getting rid of debt.
Yeah. So you got all that passive and no debt.
Yeah.
So it's like,
then no one can take it away from you.
mm-hmm. Man. Well, bro, I just really appreciate you. I know that I tell you these things, but I've been so blessed to meet people as an adult that mean so much to me. And I mean that. I grew up with just a tight group of friends, and that was it. Didn't let anyone in. And as I got older, and especially through real estate, making connections, I've been able to make friends with you. I was talking to my wife before I came over here, and she's like, "Who are you interviewing?" And I was like, "Oh, Roshan, you know, the guy that helped us with all our travel and told us to get these credit cards and book these flights and that." And she's just smiling because she knows how much it means to me. So not only on that side, but on the real estate side and just the normal life side, I really appreciate you doing this.
Man.
And I appreciate you in general.
Likewise, and happy to call you a good friend, and really, excited for your growth, for our friendship to continue growing, and to keep hearing about your travels next time you're in Manchester.
Man, it's kind of it's one of my favorite things with you is when we call and you're like, "Oh, I'm about to go on a trip," or "Oh, I just got back." And just those weren't the conversations I was used to having. So it's a blessing.
Absolutely.
But I appreciate you. We'll get out of here.
I appreciate you too, man. Thanks so much.